You're not going to believe what drifted across my screen this week, my friend. I stood watching two very different clips roll across my screen. One of Prince William in Brazil, all sunshine and stadium cheers, and another of Prince Harry speaking about Invictus with that steady voice he reserves for veterans and families. Two brothers, two rooms, two moods. And yet the same ripple ran through both moments. Little jokes online, stern headlines in print, and then that familiar hush in the middle. Jealousy. It's not the childish kind, you know. Not envy over a bigger toy or a better room. This is the older kind that wears a suit, keeps its voice down, and only comes out when the cameras have moved on. It's the kind of ache you can't quite name. Here's the question that won't leave me alone, dear friends. Are we watching a rivalry, or two men trying to survive the story that keeps being written about them? Was it jealousy, or just the impossible weight of being born second in a world that only ever rewards the first? Hi, friends. It's good to have you here again. Sit close. You know this little space. It's where we look past the headlines and see the people behind the portraits. We just tell it as it is, quietly, honestly. This isn't a courtroom, it's a living room. We'll talk like the oldest friends do, gently, clearly, and with enough heart to keep us from turning into stone lions. So pour your tea, because this story isn't really about palaces or privilege. It's about pride, silence, and what happens when two brothers grow up in the same house but under very different kinds of light. If ever there was a tale about the cost of duty, it's this one. You remember how the papers used to describe them, don't you? William the serious one, Harry the wild one. One destined to lead, the other to follow. Even as little boys, the roles were simply written in stone. That's a hierarchy that starts from the very first breath. William was always the future king. Harry, well, he was forever relegated to the fun one. And honestly, that's the problem that starts to settle in your bones. Once the world decides who you are, it rarely changes its mind. The labels stick fast. Royal insiders say that from the very beginning, Harry felt the difference in every tiny detail. It was in the attention they received, the schedules they kept, and the constant nagging sense that William mattered more to the institution. Even his schooling, his security, and his press coverage were all subtly shaped around that predefined hierarchy. William, you see, was being trained to inherit an entire institution, a machine older than any person. Harry, meanwhile, was just trying to find a meaningful place inside that same machine. He was looking for a purpose when one wasn't explicitly provided for him. You can actually see this difference play out in old footage, can't you, my friend? Friends, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot, and it keeps our little circle growing. Thank you. All right, let's go back to what happened. William is always walking a step ahead, shaking hands formally, smiling dutifully. But Harry is always a little behind, a little looser, maybe a little more restless. They were brothers, yes, but deep down, they were never truly equals. The great irony of their story is that they were once inseparable. After losing their mother, they clung to each other. The world saw them as a single unit, walking behind Diana's coffin, two boys united in grief. That day fused them forever in the public eye. But grief, honestly, changes people in ways you can't predict. As they grew, the small differences that once didn't matter started to define them completely. One learned to stand very still, the other learned to keep moving. William had the bedrock of duty to fall back on, the path that was already paved. Harry had his emotion, raw, unguarded, and deeply restless. And when you live in a family that values restraint above all else, that kind of open emotion can feel like being born on the wrong side of the glass. It's no wonder Harry once said he always felt like the backup. His memoir title, Spare, says it all, doesn't it? When your entire identity is literally defined by what you are not, jealousy stops being pettiness and becomes something closer to a constant, dull pain. That sense of hierarchy never let him forget where he stood. The tension I feel running through their past isn't wickedness. It's just two men doing what they believe is right, but failing to speak the same language. William, the future king, had to guard the perimeter, check the locks, and watch the optics at all times. And Harry just needed a hug, or at least to not feel isolated. Some reports said William felt Harry was moving too fast when he met Meghan. Maybe that was meant as a brother's love and caution. But if your heart is already packed and ready for a new life, that advice can land instead like a warning. It creates a bruise that doesn't show until much later. Here's where it gets complicated, my dear friends, because it's not one-sided. Yes, Harry's envied William's position, the attention, the institutional power, the legacy that comes with being first. But honestly, those close to the brothers say William's had moments of envy too. He envies Harry's freedom. Imagine that, the heir envying the spare. He envies his brother's ability to walk away, to speak openly, to carve out a life outside the gilded cage. It's the oldest royal irony there is, really. William is duty first, measured by tradition. Harry is purpose first, measured by impact. When the world gets noisy, each man looks suddenly freer than the other. William envies the freedom to speak without sparking constitutional headaches. Harry envies the certainty of a path that never asks, "What now?" Both envies are honest. Neither is a sin. Still, the deeper wound runs through Harry. He talks about feeling invisible during key family moments and being treated differently. Even as adults, when William and Kate's lives grew more polished and Harry's more unpredictable, the same pattern of hierarchy reappeared. When Harry married Meghan, things reached a breaking point. She was new, outspoken, American. And suddenly, he had someone who understood what it meant to feel like an outsider inside a royal frame. That feeling of being unseen suddenly had an ally. But their decision to step back, to carve their own path, only deepened the divide. From the outside, it looked like rebellion. From the inside, honestly, it probably felt like relief, and maybe revenge. It was a way for Harry to finally step out from William's shadow, to be known not as the spare, but simply as himself. Here's the twist, my friend. Leaving didn't fix the feeling of pain. Freedom, it turns out, can be terribly lonely. When you've grown up in the world's oldest institution, independence can feel a lot like exile. Every headline, every royal event, every photograph of William and Kate carrying on, it reminds Harry of the life he walked away from, but can't quite forget. That's the near-miss moment right there. The point where he could have found peace, but pride, and the lingering pain, kept him circling the same story. He still looks back, not to reclaim the throne, but to understand the story. Friends, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot, and it keeps our little circle growing. Thank you. All right, let's go back to what happened. Now, let's talk about the words that hurt most. Harry wanted protection for his wife. He wanted the machine to put its hand up and say, "No more." When that didn't happen fast enough, the hurt took root. That's how pride begins to harden. When your private pain meets a public shrug. Some reports said the palace prioritized protecting William's reputation above others. We've heard the phrase that still stings, that the institution would lie to protect the elder brother, but wouldn't be truthful to support the younger. I don't say this to inflame, my friend, but because many of us recognize that shape in our own families. Different rules for different kids. Harry wanted words, statements, counters to misinformation. William wanted calm, stability, and time. Silence versus speed. Both make sense, and yet neither satisfies the other. That kind of disagreement leads to humiliation on one side and exasperation on the other. Then came the near-miss moments. We've all lived them. A family service where eyes didn't meet. A memorial where a nod might have opened a door but didn't. A corridor where a joke could have softened the air but stayed trapped in the throat. Grace almost returned, then vanished like breath on glass. Grace knocks softly, but pride bolts the door. As time went on, the brothers began to inhabit totally different worlds. Harry's projects took on a shape of fierce independence. He wanted to be listened to on his own terms, with a voice that wasn't pre-approved. William remained on the path that bends toward duty, more formal, more deliberate, more planned. When one brother moves faster and louder for survival, and the other moves slower and quieter for stability, the gap widens. Not because either is wrong, but because each one starts to look terribly wrong to the other. At some point, love meets a ledger. Harry weighed the cost of staying silent against the cost of speaking, and he chose to speak. William weighed the cost of responding against the cost of ignoring, and he chose to keep still. That's where the rift truly deepened. One saw the other as protecting the palace at the expense of family. The other saw the first as protecting self at the expense of family. Each man believes himself to be the loyal one. That, my friends, is the most painful inversion of all. Let's talk about that heavy word, betrayal. The feeling that keeps surfacing is that Harry believes lines were crossed to protect his brother that were never crossed to protect him or Meghan. If you believe that happened, anger quickly learns to speak fluently. Pride wakes up. Trust turns suspicious. A glance becomes a grudge. Meanwhile, on William's side, frustration grows. To him, the exposure of private concerns in public, the interviews, the book, the lines that can't be unsaid, can look like a breach in the dam. It's not just about image. It's about the long chain of people who rely on that dam to hold. If you're the heir, you manage stability, not just a brand. So while Harry sees bravery and truth-telling, William sees damage and danger. Two truths, one family. The silence that neither can afford is the one they both keep feeding. Harry's need to be defended as a husband might never meet William's need to defend an institution as the next king. When the priorities are that different, the words, "You betrayed me," and "You betrayed us," just hover in the air like smoke you can't find the source of. Here's where I think it all comes together, friends. Jealousy in this case isn't about envy of crowns or cars or headlines. It's about belonging. William belongs to something Harry will never be part of again. And Harry belongs to something William will never understand. The freedom to live unguarded. That's why their relationship still feels frozen somewhere between love and resentment. One bound by duty, one bound by emotion, each looking at the other and thinking, "You have what I gave up." And the institution itself, well, it's built on that very imbalance. The heir gets purpose, the spare gets space. But purpose gives structure, and space can feel like an awful emptiness. It's a cruel symmetry, and both of them are trapped in it in their own way. People close to them say their bond now is polite, not warm. Messages, not conversations. Appearances, not connection. And that's the part that feels the saddest, doesn't it? Two men who once shared the same grief now share only distance. Reports suggest William wants clear rules around any contact, privacy, no media, no cross-traffic with other agendas. That is not necessarily cruelty, my friend. It is a boundary. The Crown has learned painfully that private meetings can immediately become public currency. A boundary keeps the temperature steady, but it also keeps progress agonizingly slow. Dignity walks at a different speed than gossip. The viral laughter about William's Brazil trip grew old by sunset. The Invictus stories grew steadier by morning. Life has a way of restoring balance if we let it. Pride that serves becomes dignity. Pride that mocks becomes noise. I know what you want to ask me, my friend. Will they meet? Quietly, without cameras, without scorekeeping? I think they will. One day when none of us are looking for it. It will be a room with a window they both know. There will be tea, because honestly, English men fight best after tea. And nothing we hear afterward will be the full truth, which is exactly as it should be. Silence protects fragile new bridges. This is the great moral truth of their story, my friends. The jealousy narrative lives because their roles force them into contrast. Both envies are honest. But here is the deeper rule of manners that was tested this week. Humiliation is never an acceptable currency between brothers. Jokes that reduce one to a body, or headlines that turn the other's work into a poke at the palace, those cheap wins cost too much. The brothers cannot afford that cruelty, not anymore. So what do we take from this, my dear friends? Maybe that jealousy isn't always ugly. Sometimes it's just a symptom of longing for fairness, for recognition, for the feeling of being truly seen. Harry's jealousy wasn't born from greed. It was born from being the boy who stood one step behind for too long. And William's envy, quiet as it may be, comes from watching a brother walk away from the only life he'll ever know. They're mirror images in a sense, one bound by expectation, the other by rebellion, each secretly wondering what it would feel like to live as the other. That's the quiet tragedy of brothers under crowns. They both believe they are keeping faith with their mother, Harry by shielding his wife from the kind of storm she once faced. William by keeping the monarchy steady, the thing she spent her life protecting. That's why apologies feel so hard. What would healing look like? Not headlines, not a scripted photo. Healing begins in the smallest room with the fewest people. It requires a private channel that doesn't leak. An admission, just once, that each brother misread the other's fear. Grace never arrives in a convoy. It knocks alone. When Harry says he feels William chose the palace over him, he's saying, "Choose me first, just once." And when William stays silent, he may be saying, "If I choose you first, everything else breaks." It's the saddest of equations. Save the person or save the place. No wonder they both feel betrayed. Each thinks the other had an easier choice, when in truth neither did. The truth lives somewhere in the middle, under the long shadow of duty and the longer shadow of loss. This rift isn't just a gossip line, but a map of competing loyalties. One brother's courage looks like recklessness, the other's restraint looks like coldness. So, if you see the next headline about Harry and William feuding again, take it with a pinch of salt, my friend. Behind the royal stiffness, they're just two boys who grew up in the same storm but learned different ways to survive it. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Pride divides, silence deepens it, and dignity only returns when you stop competing and start understanding. Because no matter how grand the palace is or how heavy the titles, envy still sounds the same, a whisper that says, "Why not me?" Always check more than one source, my friends. That's how we stay fair. Some reports say rivalry, others say reconciliation. The truth, as ever, lies somewhere between love and silence. I don't know if they will ever return to the easy closeness of their 20s. Life hardens us, and men sometimes let the hardening pass for strength. But I do believe in small mercies, a check-in, a shared memory no one else finds funny. Those things patch holes the public never sees. Dignity means you fix what you can out of sight. Maybe that's the lesson, my dear friends. Pride never lasts, but dignity does. And if they ever walk side by side again, it won't be because the world demanded it. It will be because at last, family outran the headlines, and loyalty learned how to share a room with truth. I'll leave one small mystery on the table, because life always does. When the Invictus anniversary ends and the Brazil clips have faded, will the phone ring in a quiet kitchen? No aides, no schedules, just one brother asking the other if he wants a walk. We won't know until after it happens, if we ever know at all. Which is exactly how real peace survives. Finish your tea, my dear friend. The next chapter will arrive the way important things always do. Softly, just when we're looking elsewhere. And when it does, we'll be ready to read between the lines together. And if you love royal surprises, click on the video on your screen. That's the next chapter, and you won't believe what they did.